Hello YouTube and welcome to the next video in the route learning series for Train Simulator. On today's journey we're going to be driving train 1 Charlie 09 from Bristol Temple Meads to Exeter. This train is actually a London Paddington to Paignton service, and we will be calling at Weston-super-Mare, Taunton and Exeter St David's. I wasn't originally planning on covering this route just because of its age, because it is quite an old route now. However, one of my friends, Matty Doyle, requested that I cover this route, so I've made this video, and the scenario I'm using was actually created by him. As a result of the age of this route, you can see that the route is using default track textures from the original rail simulator routes, and in addition to this there are very few 3D trees and there is no super elevation on the curves, which means that on some of the curves when you're actually doing the speed limit they appear to be too sharp for the speed that you're doing. Here we are inside the cab of the HST, which I have covered in the video on the Riviera line from Paignton to Exeter. So just having a quick look around. Here we have the brake controller. Over here we have the power controller, which has 5 steps of power. Up here we have the reversing handle, which needs to be in forward. We have the AWS reset. The horn. I have control over the high tone and the low tone because I've actually got the Armstrong Powerhouse MTU sound pack installed for this locomotive. Up here we have the speedometer on the left and the ammeter on the right. The ammeter is showing how much power we're generating with the current throttle setting. Over here we have the brake gauges. The main one to look at is the one which says bogey 1 and bogey 2 on it, which is the brake cylinder gauge. The harder you have the brakes applied, the higher those needles climb. And with this HST, the brakes actually release fairly slowly. I'm not sure that that's entirely realistic. So you have to try and release the brakes before you're at the target speed that you want to be at when slowing down. Departing Bristol Temple Meads, the starting speed limit is 25 miles per hour, and we've got around 19.5 miles to go to the next stop, which is Weston-super-Mare. As we reach 20 miles per hour, I'm shutting off power, as the speed limit will shortly be dropping to 10 miles per hour as we go across some points. Now under this bridge, I'm braking for the points just ahead. One problem with this HST is that the brakes seem to release quite slowly, so I've just applied a tiny bit of power just to ensure that we didn't lose too much speed while waiting for the brakes to release. Now the brakes are released and we're doing 10 miles per hour, I've shut off power and we're going to coast until we can accelerate further. As we approach this facing point here, the rear of the train has now cleared the 10 mile per hour point, so we're able to accelerate up to the 25 mile per hour speed limit. speed limit is now going up to 90 miles per hour. I've just temporarily shut off power as we reached 25 and the rear of the train hadn't cleared the 90 speed board. We can accelerate up to the 90 mile per hour speed limit as we reach the rear of the signals on the right just here. Now we can accelerate. We're now going through Bedminster. We're now going through Parsons Street. As we reach the 90 mile per hour speed limit, I'm just going to temporarily shut off power and coast. The speed limit will shortly be going up once again to 100 miles per hour. As you can see, we've now passed the 100 mile per hour speed board. And we can power up almost straight away because we've been letting the train coast, so we're going slightly slower than the speed limit. Gradient's now changed to down 1 in 200, so we're going to have to adjust the power between idle and step 1 to try and maintain speed. So I've idled the power until we get down towards 95 miles per hour, and then I will go back into step 1. Now going through Nailsea and Blackwell station, and we've got about 11.5 miles to go now. We now have a single yellow signal. Although these signals are quite some distance apart on this route, often up to 1.5 miles, I'm applying braking straight away to bring the speed down. When we approach yellow signals, we must always adopt a technique of defensive driving, assuming that the following signal is red until we can see otherwise. So I'm going to slow down to a speed at which, as soon as I can see the signal, if it is red, I will be able to stop. So I'm using step 3 braking for this brake application as we come down in speed towards stopping speed. Now see that the next signal is a single yellow, so I'm releasing the brakes and applying power, and we're now going through Taunton station. So as we're on a single yellow signal, I won't accelerate to faster than about 55 miles per hour, and then I will let the train coast. We're now passing Taunton loops. We can now see the next signal just coming up and see that it is in fact clear, so I'm going into full power to accelerate back up towards line speed. see that once again we have a single yellow signal. However, this is the approach controlled signal for the junction for the line towards Weston-super-Mare. So just after we've passed under that overbridge, once we've reached this whistle board, because we're not doing the full line speed, I'm now going to brake for that signal coming up. If we were doing the full 100 mph speed limit, then the recommended braking point would be the overbridge immediately after that signal. We're now passing through Wall Station. We can now see the signal just ahead and see that it's displaying a red aspect. So I'm slowing down for that now. And as it's an approach control signal, it has now changed to a green aspect, so I'm releasing the brakes. And you can see a white light just above the signal. This is a feather, which indicates that I'm going to be turning off the main line towards Weston-super-Mare. The speed limit across the points here is 40 mph. As we reach 40 mph, I'm going to shut off power and let the train coast. You can see the speed limit's now going up to 60 mph, and we'll be able to accelerate to that at the rear of the signal just coming up. Now that we've passed this signal, we can now accelerate up to the 60 mph speed limit. Once again, as we've reached 60 mph, I've now shut off power to let the train coast. We're now passing Weston Milton Station. We now have a warning for a speed reduction to 25 mph. The warning is half a mile from the limit itself. And I'm going to apply the brakes into step 3 just before this right hand curve just coming up. So I've now applied the brakes. As the curve sharpens, I've now increased the brake force to step 4. And just over 30 mph I'll release the brakes, because they're slow releasing as I mentioned earlier. I've applied a small amount of power to ensure that we don't lose too much speed while the brakes are releasing. And the speed limit is now 25 mph. And just in the distance there you can see the platforms at Weston-super-Mare coming up. The stopping point here is right at the end of the platform, and in fact if you stop just behind here the doors won't actually open. Departing from Weston-super-Mare, the starting speed limit is 25 miles per hour, and we've got about 26 3/4 miles to go to the next stop, which is Taunton. As we reach the 25 mile per hour speed limit, I've shut off power to let the train coast. The next speed limit is just coming up, and the speed limit is going up now to 60 miles per hour. However, we'll have to coast for a short while until we're able to accelerate. Once we've reached this footbridge just coming up, we're now able to accelerate up to the 60 speed limit. As we approach this signal around the next curve, we'll be rejoining the main line once again. The speed limit drops initially to 50 miles per hour and then down to 40. So as we reach this signal, I'm now going to make a step 2 brake application, just to slow down for the 50 speed limit. Just increase that to step 3, as I wasn't braking quite quick enough. And now I'm in a step 2 brake application to slow for 40 miles per hour as we cross from the up line onto the down line. Once the rear of the train has cleared the points, we're then able to accelerate up to the 100 mile per hour speed limit, and we can use this arched over bridge just above us as a landmark. So once we passed under that, which we have now, we're able to accelerate. The speed limit, as you can see, is now going up to the highest speed limit on the route, which is 110 miles per hour. we approach 110 miles per hour, I'm going to shut power down to step 1 to try and ensure we hold roughly this speed. Now going through Highbridge and Burnham Station. I've applied an extra step of power just as we seem to have lost a little bit of speed. As we get towards 110, I'll once again reduce power to step 1. We now had a warning for a speed reduction to 100 miles per hour, so I'm immediately braking into step 2, which should slow us down about right for the 100 speed limit. Now that we're doing 100 miles per hour, we've applied step 1 power to bring us back up towards 100. As we reach 100, I will step down in power once again, just to ensure that we don't break the speed limit. Now passing through Bridgewater, and we've got 11.5 miles to go to Taunton. now approaching Coglow Junction, where the main line from Reading towards Taunton, and in fact the shorter route, rejoins us here. Both the route via Bristol and the route via Westbury are considered the Great Western Main Line. And at this point we're going down at 1 in 82, so I've applied step 1 braking just to ensure that we don't break the speed limit. And now that we're down to around 95, I've released the brakes so the train can gently coast back up towards 100. And now I've applied step 1 power once again. Now that we can see the playing fields on the right, we know that we're on the outskirts of Taunton. The next signal is an approach controlled signal, as we will be turning to the left. And the speed limit over the points, although on the HUD it will say 60 miles per hour, I believe that it should really be taken closer to 40, as it just seems a bit fast otherwise. So I've got the brakes on now, up to step 5 to slow down, as I'm not sure exactly where the points are. But I know that they're shortly after this next signal just coming up. I'm now reducing the brake force. So I've pulled the brakes back to step 2. And you can see the points now just coming up. So I've increased the brake force just slightly more, and now I'll release the brakes completely and apply 2 steps of power to ensure that we don't lose too much speed. Now that we're at 40 miles per hour, I've shut off power to allow the train to coast. We should see Taunton Station just coming up in a minute. And we can brake when we see the station. And you can see it now just at the end of this right-hand curve. So I've applied step 2 braking as we pass the 40 mile per hour board, and now going up to step 4 just to bring the speed off. On this route there are no stop markers for trains, so you've got to work out the best place to stop your train. I've reduced the brake forces. I think we're going to stop slightly too early otherwise. And we're going to use the building on the right, which is white in colour, which is slightly curved. You can just see that there, and there's some writing on the left of that building. So we're going to stop just around that building there. As you can see, the writing now says High Point, so if you just remember to stop by the High Point building, that's roughly the right place. Departing Taunton, the starting speed limit is 40 miles per hour, and we've got just under 31 miles to go to the final stop, which is Exeter St David's. Although the starting speed limit is 40 miles per hour, at the points just coming up, 40 just seems a bit fast, so I'm going to shut off power at 25 to coast over these points. We know that the back of the train has crossed the points as we reach this 100 mile per hour board here. So we can now power up and accelerate up to the 100 mile per hour speed limit. We're now passing Fairwater Yard on the left. Here at Norton Fitzwarren in 1940 was the site of a train crash where a train driver misread the signals departing Taunton, and while he was on the relief line to the left which just joined us, he was reading the signals on the main line which was showing green, and as he got closer to the main line, a train on that line actually overtook him and he realised his error, and the train was derailed on a set of catch points just before it joined the main line. As we reached 100 miles per hour, I've now gone down to step 1 power to try and ensure that we don't break the speed limit. If the speed needle reaches 100 miles per hour as it has done now, I'm just going to shut off power just to let the train slow down slightly. And now once again I'll reapply power to step 1. We're now starting a climb, which will go as steep as up in 1 in 86, which is why I've just applied full power. On this hill while we're going up, even in full power we will lose a tiny bit of speed, so we need to remain in full power until the gradient levels off. One thing that you can see is missing from this route, as it's so old here, is tunnel occlusions, so unfortunately the track in tunnels is far too bright. Just at the end of this tunnel the gradient levels off, and then the gradient will start to go downhill. So as the gradient levels off, I'm going to shut off power to let the train coast. We may lose a little bit of speed, but on the downhill bit it will all be caught up again. We're now going downhill at 1 in 115. As we reach 100 miles per hour, I'm now going to use one step of brake just to bring off a little bit of speed to ensure that we don't break the speed limit. And now I'll release the brake and let the train coast back up to 100 again. Gradient has now levelled out a bit, which is why I've just added a step of power. Though as you can see we have a double yellow signal here. So I now need to shut off power and apply the brakes. I'm using step 3 of braking, and we're now going through Tiverton Parkway. As I'm not sure where the red signal is, I've applied harder braking up to step 5, which is 4 on the brake gauge. And now as I can see, I can't see the signal ahead, I'm releasing the brakes. We're now travelling at a slow enough speed that as soon as the signal is visible we will be able to stop. We can now see the red signal just coming up. As you can see, the signal has now turned green, so I'm now going to accelerate away straight back up to the 100 mph speed limit. As we reach 100 mph, I've just shut off power just to slow down a little bit towards 95, and then once we're at 95 mph again, I'm going to leave the power in step 1, which should keep us below 100 miles an hour pretty much all the way to Exeter. I just shut off power just for a second as we accelerated slightly more than I was expecting to. So as the speed drops down towards 97 miles per hour, I'll once again go back up to step 1 of power. again, I've just stepped down power for a brief moment, just to lose a little bit of speed, and now I'll go back up into step 1. Have a warning for a speed reduction down to 80 miles per hour. I'm going straight into step 4 braking, as the warning is only half a mile from the limit itself. Now doing about 75 miles per hour. There will shortly be a further speed reduction. And I'm now braking for the speed reduction down to 65 miles per hour. The line from Barnstaple now joins us on the right. Now have a warning for a speed reduction to 30 miles per hour just before Exeter St David's station, and the warning is 3/4 of a mile from the limit itself. I am now braking for the 30 mile per hour speed limit. We're now crossing Red Cow level crossing, which is a 6-track level crossing, which is fairly unique on the British Railway network. And as we enter the platform at Exeter St David's, the stopping point is at the other end of the platform. Here we are, arrival at Exeter St David's. Thanks for watching, and I hope you've enjoyed the video.